First of all, I want to thank everybody who read my previous post and gave me some advice. I didn't expect to get so much attention, but I'm certainly glad that I did. Despite everything that happened though, I'm still hesitant to admit that whatever's going on might be something supernatural or related to aliens and similar things. I never believed in any of that, and I'm reluctant to start believing in it now. Still, I must admit that other, more realistic explanations don't really fit when you look at all the facts. Some of you suggested drugs, brainwashing, and similar things as a possible explanation, and while that might make some sense, it still doesn't explain the fact that she hasn't changed at all during those 5 months. Another problem is that I don't want to raise suspicion in Leah. If I started doing those things like making salt lines at every possible entrance, she would have noticed. Horror and supernatural things are her hobby, and even if she didn't react in any way to any of that, she would definitely realise what I'm doing, and know that I suspect something. With that in mind, I tried to start subtly. After I returned from my girlfriend's house, I started testing her. Small things like making food that she doesn't like for myself, and asking her if she wants some. Talking about childhood events, pretending I remember them wrong and seeing if she corrects me. That kind of thing. Unfortunately, I got nowhere with that. In every single case, she remembered how it really was. Hey, does that have carrots in? You know I don't like carrots, Jim. No, you remember it wrong. You fell from that tree and tried to blame it on me. I didn't push you. No, I got you that Pratchett book you wanted for last Christmas. The computer game you got was from Mom. That basically leaves me with two possibilities. Either this is the real Leah, in which case I must find out what's going on with her. The second, far more sinister option is, this isn't the real Leah, but whatever it is, it has her memories. And if that is true, well, first of all, I'm probably screwed, because how could I possibly outsmart some unknown creature or entity that can behave exactly like my sister would? And second of all, I must find the real Leah. I do have other tricks up my sleeve though. 2 days after I submitted my first post, Sandra came over for dinner. She's been spending as much time as she can with Leah since her return, but I've noticed that she wasn't as relaxed as she used to be around Leah. And then, I saw how Leah looked at her when she thought nobody was watching. That same calculating gaze that I've noticed before. As if Sandra was just something under the microscope. And considering her behaviour, Sandra's probably noticed that look as well. That's when I realised, and I can't believe I didn't think of this sooner, that Sandra would probably be the best person to talk to about Leah. She's her best friend, and she knows her almost as well as my parents and I do. And frankly, my parents are a bit oblivious to the entire situation anyway. Ever since Leah came back, they've been so happy. And even if they noticed anything strange, they're probably in denial. Not that I blame them, but I can't rely on them right now. Plus, Sandra was the person who did the research on that creepy house with Leah. And if that house is somehow linked to her disappearance, Sandra is my best bet. With all that in mind, I went to visit Sandra yesterday. The second she heard that I came to talk about Leah, she let me into her house. So, I started, have you noticed Leah's been a bit strange since she's returned? Sandra sighed in relief. Oh, thank God you've noticed it too. I thought I was going crazy. She was silent for a few seconds and then continued. This is all just so bizarre, Jim. Where was she? Why doesn't she remember anything? Why does she look completely the same? Is she even telling the truth? Do you have any theories? She threw her hands in the air. Drugs? Brainwashing? Extreme trauma? Some crazy experiment? Alien abduction? Take your pick. And yes, I know the last two probably sound insane. I sighed. This just doesn't make any damn sense. She looks completely the same. You'd have thought she'd at least lose weight, have some bruises or marks, but there's nothing. I know, Sandra frowned, looking at her hands. Problem is, we don't have that much to go on. If she's lying and she actually remembers something, she won't tell us about it. I know she's seeing a therapist, but that probably won't help us that much. Doctor-patient confidentiality and all that. I could still attempt to talk to him somehow. I wouldn't hold out too much hope, Jim. Unless you somehow get Leah talking, we have almost nothing. What about the house? I reminded her, and watched as she flinched. I know she didn't like to be reminded that she left Leah alone in there, not that anyone blamed her, but I had to ask her about it. You're investigating a strange house with its own urban legend. Leah stays in there alone and goes missing. Don't you think there could be a connection? Do you think I didn't consider that? Before I went home that day, we went through the whole building, and there wasn't anything unusual. It was a bit creepy, like abandoned places are, but it was just a house. We were in every room, we took photos of everything. She suddenly stopped, and her eyes widened. The photos, Jim. Leah had a camera with her. Do you remember if she still had it when she came back? I shook my head. She didn't. Damn it! Then it either stayed in the house or she lost it when she was abducted. Do you think there could be something captured in those pictures? I don't know. Maybe. She pressed her lips into a thin line. Do you think there's something supernatural going on? I have no idea, but we need to find out more about the house. It's the only lead that we have right now. Do you still have the materials for the article? Yeah, they should be in my room somewhere. Do you want to go through them now? If you have time for it, then yes. She nodded. Wait a second, I'll bring them here. It took some time, but eventually we got through the materials together, and here's everything that we know about the house so far. The two men who lived in there were Christopher Dalliard and Matthew Spaulding. Christopher was 30, Matthew 27. Apparently Matthew inherited the house from his aunt, who was always viewed as a little eccentric, but she was a lovely old lady. He worked as a clerk, and probably supported both himself and Christopher, who was a much more mysterious figure. Sandra couldn't find out anything that people in our town knew about him. He wasn't a local, and he didn't have any family or friends here. Matthew and he were both very introverted and reclusive. They didn't share much information about themselves. They didn't go out unless they needed to, and they disappeared just 9 months after they moved in and were never found. Matthew has a twin brother, Robert, whom Sandra tried to contact before Leah's disappearance when she was trying to get more information for her article. He basically screamed something about goddamn journalists and hung up on me, Sandra said when I asked her about it. Not that I didn't partially expect it, still, it would have been nice to have more information. I thought about it for a while. Do you still have his contact info? Probably, yeah. Why, do you want to talk to him? We need answers, Sandra. I know it's not much of a lead, but if the house could be linked to Leah somehow, I need to find out more about it. She shook her head. He'll probably just hang up on you anyway. I'm not going to call him. Does he live nearby? You want to visit him? Yes, I said simply. I thought she might try to talk me out of it, but she didn't. Instead, she said, in that case, I want to go with you. If I remember correctly, he doesn't live too far. It's about 2 hours by car. I knew better than to try and change her mind. We've made plans to go visit Robert Spaulding on Saturday. We just need to come up with a good cover story to tell Leah. It'd be foolish to hope that she won't notice we've gone for several hours. So far, nothing's changed in her behaviour, but I suspect it's just a case of quiet before the storm. Unless something important happens, I'll make the next post after talking to Robert.